my bro.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Eating While Broke. I'm your host, Coline Witt, and today we have very special guest, Charlamagne Tha God in the building.
Yo, Queen Witt, what's happening? What's going on? How do you feel?
Good. I wanted to do this long intro for you because people, I don't know how, I sometimes think only in versions of myself. I'm a very love to read person, and I've realized that not everyone likes to read. And so because I've read some of your previous books, I genuinely feel like I know your story, and I try not to go into an interview reading too much about someone because then it's hard to stay in that moment. But for you, I do want to kind of recount your resume just a little bit. So Charlamagne Tha God, also known as hip hop's Howard Stern.
Really?
Best-selling author of books Black Privilege, Shook One, and most recently Get Honest or Die Lying, Why Small Talk Sucks.
Yep.
In addition to all these accolades, you have invested close to 30 years in the radio broadcasting industry. You're the founder of the Black Effect Podcast Network.
Where you can listen to Eating While Broke.
Which you yourself is literally the only reason why we're able to do this interview. And in addition to all that, you are the creator of Black Privilege Publishing. I read this quote. I was hanging out at my dad's apartment, and he had this quote on the wall, and I took it. And the whole irony in this quote is that he actually took it from me. But I read this quote, and I thought of you. Excellence is never an accident. It is always a result of high intention, sincere effort, intelligent direction, skillful execution, and the vision to see obstacles as opportunities. Now, I thought of you because just reading all your books, I was like, personally and professionally, it seems like that has been your journey.
Absolutely.
The end goal.
Absolutely.
So I gotta ask, what is the broke dish that you would have had us eating in my studio if we were in LA and not in New York?
I really don't know. I was racking my brain when they kept telling me, and I watched the show, and I'm like, they kept, you got to have a broke dish, and I'm like, I didn't really have a broke dish coming up, and the reason I say that is because even though we were poor, I didn't realize we were poor till I got older. Because, I grew up in Moncks Corner, South Carolina, and, when you grow up in a rural area like that, like everybody is pretty much doing the same. Like, you might have a couple of individuals who got a house that's better than yours, but for the most part, people, we're growing up in double wide trailers, and we're growing up in, like small southern homes like my grandma used to have. But the one thing that we always had was food and funny. Food, funny, and family, literally, So it's like the things that people would call broke meals are the things that I still love now. Like I love grits and eggs. You give me some scrambled eggs with some grits and butter, I'm good. Like my grandma used to make this, she used to make cheese toast. So she would just take the toast. My mouth started watering thinking about it. She would just take the toast and put the butter on the center and then put a slice of cheese and literally warm that up. And I would drink that with a cup of tea. And now that I think about it, I'm like, oh, that was like the meals that they were giving us because that's what they could afford to give us. Like even, but it was amazing. That it still tasted good. Like it don't make me feel like something, it's something that I still enjoy now. You know? So to me, that's not, it might be a broke dish, but I still love it.
I love hearing guests say that they were broke, but they didn't realize they were broke. But in those types of cities, what I did notice is that, everyone looked the same, but what differentiated kids from knowing whether they were broke was, at least, I don't know, we're close in age, but was the kicks. Like, were you going to school with the cool kicks or something?
Nah, I ain't had none of those. My dad, I remember there used to be these boots called high-tech boots. And my dad, they sold the bootleg version at Payless. And I wanted them so bad that I'm like, I'll get the bootleg version at Payless.
And the kids didn't notice?
Well, no. I woke up one morning and my dad had the high-tech sitting by my bed. So I was like, oh, shoot. You know what I mean? So I actually had the real, all black high-techs, So I didn't have the Jordans and all of that stuff like that. I don't even, what kind of sneakers did I have back then?
But I'm saying in that environment, that wasn't the thing that differentiated a poor kid from, because in those environments, everyone's technically in the same economic structure. But I remember growing up in upstate New York where even though we were all kind of in the same category, there were some kids that would go to school wearing Jordans or Nikes, and then they would look at the kids that say wear Payless and be like, okay, you're poor. And that's how, as a child, you knew you were poor.
But the people who had the Jordans and stuff when I was growing up was the drug dealers, for the most part.
Okay.
You know, I mean, either the drug dealers or like the football players, because, you know, people in their mind like, oh, these people are going places, so, you know, let me throw them some shoes or something like that. But for the most part, the drug dealers had the fly kicks that I remember, you know, growing up. I don't even remember what I didn't. I'm sitting there trying, like, what did I wear back then, sneaker wise? I had some Converse, because, you know, Snoop Dogg came out in like 92, 93, so we had the Converse All Stars. You know, that's all I can really think of.
So take me back to the cheese toast, which, by the way, I did have on the show. Someone had did it with sugar. It was actually pretty good. I was impressed.
Mine was straight cheese toast, the butter with a slice of cheese, cup of tea. That's what my grandmother would give us. And I can even still right now think about that feeling of having that. Like, it was just an amazing meal. I can't remember. That wasn't even breakfast. That might have just been like, yo, you just got home from school. You might get some cheese toast with a cup of tea, you know?
Yeah.
Definitely, like I said, grits and eggs for breakfast.
And you keep referencing your grandma's house. Is there a reason? Because did you stay with her? Or?
No, that's just, well, when I was young, my mother was a school teacher, you know, and my grandmother was a lunch lady, right? So, you know, I grew up in the era when you was in 5th grade, you know, I could get dropped off in my grandma's house and wait there till the adults come. And, you know, I would never dare do that with my kids now, but, you know, just back then, life was different. So I would literally wait till my mom came home from school. So I spent so much time, you know, at my grandmother's house. Like, so yeah, I spent a lot of time over there.
Okay. And then take me through to at least fast forward to like your first walk of, I want to get into entertainment or in that direction.
My grandmother's house, sitting outside while they waiting for my mom and my grandma to get home. And like, when I was young, it used to seem like it was this huge field between my grandmother's house and my cousin Gloria's house, but the field really isn't that big now. But when I was younger, it used to feel like it was really big. And I would just be out there acting like I was performing. Like, I literally would be facing the field, acting like that field was full of people. And I'd either be acting like I was, you know, at certain points doing rock and roll. At certain points, I was just giving like speeches, and then, like, you know, as I started to get into hip hop, I started to act like I was rapping to a crowd. So that was my first, I guess that's when the bug kind of hit me, like, yo, I want to entertain in some way, shape, or form.
Did you see or hear it somewhere and then it like touched you? Was it like maybe I remember when I was a kid, I would see Michael Jackson perform and people pass out, and I'd be like, oh my God, like, that's incredible. Was there something like that touched you to get you out into that field?
No, I just think that, you know, my dad used to play music a lot, and, you know, there was always albums lying around. So you would just see those people, and they used to look cool, you know. I'm a big cartoon guy to this day, so I used to like watch a lot of Thundercats. And
oh my God, the Thundercats.
And there was a spinoff of the Thundercats. I think it was the Silverfish or something like that. Okay. Maybe I'm bugging, but I remember, or maybe it was something with birds. You know, the Thundercats were cats, but then it was bird. There was a spinoff show that was either birds or fish. I don't remember which one it was, but I remember, like, I would have this imagination that I was, you know, like, this gonna sound crazy, but I was an animal-like figure, and I had a band behind me that was all those animal humanoids, and we were like this group, and I don't know why I would go out in the yard and perform as this group all the time. So
imagination at its best.
That's all it was. So it's like, yeah.
So then what was that next big milestone after, you know, you're performing, you kind of have this like love affair with performing? What was that next big milestone or pivotal moment where you said, maybe I should actually push a button and take it a step further?
Well, for radio, it started with me getting an internship. That's why I think internships are so important. And I got an internship when I was 18 years old in Charleston, South Carolina. And the reason I was able to get that internship is because I always tell people, man, stop acting like you know and just ask questions. So I've always been a question asker, right? Mm-hmm. Like if there's something that I'm interested in, something I don't know nothing about, I just ask questions about it, a lot of questions, because, you know, when you ask a lot of questions, you know, you'll get answers. Mm-hmm. So I just simply asked my man, his name was Willie Will, because he used to work at Z93 Jams in Charleston, South Carolina, and we used to rap together. Well, I need to take a step back, right? Rap is what we all thought was going to get us out of the hood, right? When you was young, because when you looked on television or you looked in magazines, the people who looked like you, who were successful, black people, were usually in rap or some form of entertainment or in athletics. So I always thought rap was going to take me out the hood. I loved to write, always been a writer. So I just started turning those stories I was writing into raps. But I was never good in the booth. So I would like go in the booth. I couldn't like catch the beat, stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like I just could never do it. But I was always good at writing, good at helping people pick songs, stuff like that. And Willie Will was a guy who could rap. He sounded really good, you know, in the booth. And I just asked him, how did he get in the radio? And he was like, yeah, I got an internship. And I was like, yo, it's that easy? I can just go down there and get an internship? And he was like, yeah. I was like, I don't got to be in school or nothing? Because in my mind, you got to be in school. He was like, no, this is 1998, Charleston, South Carolina. So that's what I did. I drove down there. And I got an internship, and literally they gave me the internship, and that's how I got into the radio game. So rap is what made me feel like, okay, this is gonna get me out the hood. And then that ultimately led me to radio, which was what changed my life. And, you know, I had a great mentor named Dr. Robert Evans. You know, I talk about him all the time. You know, in my first book, I got a chapter called Fuck Your Dreams, you know, if they're not your dream. Right? Because a lot of times we see things working for other people and we say, oh, we want to do that too. Yeah. But that's not what God has meant for you. So Dr. Evans told me, he was like, yo, you suck as a rapper, but you are an amazing radio personality. And if you focus on radio, you could be one of the best that ever did it. And he literally said that to me, and I took his advice.
So I don't like to jump around, but it's the irony in you saying that was the advice you got, but then in Get Honest or Die Lying, you actually talk about doing the opposite in regards to your daughters.
Astronaut kids. Yep.
You still, though, cherish that moment of honesty.
Well, Astronaut Kids, you know, in the new book is a chapter I did with my man Elliot Connie, who's a psychotherapist. And, you know, it's about the astronaut kid theory. Like if your child comes to you and your child says, hey, I want to be an astronaut. You know, you don't say, oh, it's impossible, you'll never be an astronaut, blah, blah, blah. You tell them, okay, so how are we going to get it done? Yeah. You know, you pour into them, you encourage them. And I also talk about, you know, in Black Privilege, about how I had a family member when I was just sitting around talking about all my dreams, talking about everything I want to accomplish. They told me not to set my goals so high because if I don't accomplish them, I'm gonna be hurt. And I literally said to that person, that is the stupidest shit I ever heard in my life. Because I really felt that way. Yeah. And with astronaut kids, when a child comes to you and they say they want to be something, you should pour into them. I still do believe in the fuck your dreams mentality. But I believe that more so with adults who I know are chasing things that they see working for other people, as opposed to tapping into what it is that they truly should be doing, you know, themselves.
I agree. So what you're saying is like over 18, you definitely be honest. I remember I had an interview with DC Youngfly, and he wanted to be like a basketball player. And he said, you know, he transferred schools. He was like the best basketball player in this like little school he was going to, move to a different school. He was like the worst basketball player. And the coach like catapulted his dreams. Was like, you'll never be a basketball player. Wow. And he was like, well, thank God for him saying that, because it forced him to like check out other lanes.
Absolutely.
And I do agree with that. But I also heard the astronaut thing. I'm a new mom, like I'm daughters too. So I'm like soaking up any advice any parent will give me, you know? And I was like, well, you know, all these, some people say let your kid fall or whatever, but I did like the beauty in the astronaut theory. Going back to your internship, sorry to derail. I like to see the growth in you, and you see it you're very transparent about the growth of who you were trying to be, and then who you've become and who you're actively becoming. But go ahead, take back to so you get into radio.
Yep.
And what's the environment like? What do you find that you love the most about it? And what was your internship duties at the time?
Oh, internship duties, I did everything. I had to drive the station vehicle. I had to put the posters up. You know, I had to set up, you know, DJ equipment if need be, set up the tables for people to, you know, put their stuff on. Like literally whatever I needed to do. Like, you know, people like to call that do boy stuff, but it's like, I mean, I guess, you know. Yeah. So I used to actually take the station vehicle home. Mm-hmm. So even when it was other intern shifts, they would come and be like, well, where's the truck?
Why were you taking it home?
Because when they would come and be like, where's the truck? Then they would have, you know what? I think Charlamagne had it last. So they would call like, Charlamagne, you got the truck? Yeah, actually I do. What's up?
Oh,
Well, somebody got a remote in an hour. I'm on the way. And I would take the truck and I would just go to the remote with the intern. So I was there. I was crashing everybody's set. And then not just coming to the, all the remotes. I would be sitting in the studio, being a fly on the wall. Willie Will used to let me sit in with him a lot. And I would just sit there and just like, soak it all up, taking what was going on. And this is another reason the astronaut kid theory is so powerful, because I always talk about my homegirl Tessa Spencer, who's from Charleston, South Carolina, and her and Baby J had a show on Z93 called The Breakfast Club when I was growing up, and that was the huge morning show in Charleston, because Z93 still is the big heritage station down there. And Tessa she called one day when I was on a Sunday morning doing what we call voice tracking. So voice tracking is basically you would record your breaks, upload them, but you still had to sit in the studio while the show was on. Because I was new,
Yeah.
And she called and she goes, yo, she was telling me about a traffic accident that was somewhere on, but she was like, yo, you sound really good. And I said, thank you. She's like, no, I'm not just saying that. Like, you sound really good, like a natural. And the confidence that gave me, like the boost, the energy that gave me, like, oh shit, Tessa Spencer from the Breakfast Club just told me I sound good. Like, so it solidified to me that I was doing what I was supposed to be doing, because it already felt good. It felt amazing. Like, I'm talking about, it felt like you on that microphone, it felt like the first time you had an orgasm, like literally, like or that first time you got high, and you're like, oh man, this is amazing. Like, it just felt incredible. And so when she told me that, it just like set something off in me that it lit a spark that hasn't gone out.
Like, this is definitely my purpose after that.
100%. I knew that, because you got this tattoo I got on my arm right here.
Oh my gosh, is that a Thundercat? No.
Thundercat. No, it's Wolverine.
Oh, Wolverine.
It's horrible though. My man, it's a guy named T. Willis. This when tattoos were illegal in South Carolina. My man T. Willis did this, but it's Wolverine from the X-Men holding a microphone in his hand.
Yeah, you need to get this tat oh yeah, I see it.
You see it? And the reason I got Wolverine, because Wolverine is still my favorite X-Men character.
Okay.
But the thing I loved about Wolverine was his healing powers. Literally, he had the ability to heal from any situation. And so I always knew in my mind, even back then, I think I got this when I was 17, I knew that, I think I might have been a little older, like 18, 19, but I knew in my mind that I wanted to have that ability. I wanted to have the ability to heal from anything. This is before I didn't know nothing about no therapy. I wasn't on no healing journey back then. I was out of my mind back then, but I just knew in my mind I wanted to be able to heal from any situation. And I knew and I used to say this to myself. I knew that wasn't possible physically. So I used to always say emotionally, mentally, I wanted to be able to heal from anything. And he's holding a mic because I thought rap was going to be what changed my life, but actually it was these type of microphones that changed my life. And then now you see I'm a huge mental health advocate, helping people on their healing journey. So it's just like, man, God don't waste nothing.
He don't. But now back at 18 and 19, you also had the name Charlamagne, or you had the nickname then?
Yes, because I graduated from night school I graduated from night school in 1998. So I was either about to be 20 or still 19. But yeah, because I used to sell crack, and I used to always say my name was Charles, like, because I come from a small town. So if I said my real name, people be like, oh, that's Larry's son, or that's Julie's son. So I used to always say my name was Charles or Charlie. And then we used to all smoke a lot of weed, so we all had like weed nicknames. So I was like Charlie Chronic. Somebody else was like Mikey Marijuana. Somebody else was Ichabodism. Somebody else was Bobby Buddha.
I think it's interesting because throughout your whole story, it seems like you had the Charlamagne, which was almost, I hate to say it for lack of better terms, but you had this like bad boy persona type thing that you were leading with, but then in the back of your mind, even with The God or with the next, it was like in the back of your mind, but like healing or moving in this like purposeful direction, but even was lingering in the background, right?
Yeah, but even with Charlamagne, because Charlamagne is French for Charles the Great, and Charlamagne was a Roman emperor who went about spreading religion and education. And then in Haiti, there's a General Charlamagne, and he was just a revolutionary, right? So I picked that name for those reasons, because they meant something. So I'm sitting in night school looking at a history book, and I see Charles the Great, and I'm like, Charles the Great. I'm like, Charlamagne. I'm like Charlamagne is French for Charles the Great. So I'm like, oh, I just call myself Charlamagne Tha God. So it really didn't make no sense, because it's like, it'd be like Charles the Great, the God. But I was 17 and high all the time, or 18. I don't remember how old. I can't remember how old. I was like, I know it was 1998. So I was like 19 probably, but I was in night school.
Okay. And then now, when do you officially, after the internship, start getting into paid? Like, how long did that transition take?
I was an intern for a while, because they actually had canceled the internship programs, and then they brought me back. And then when they brought me back, they hired me in the promotions department. So basically, to get paid, I think it might have been $6 an hour, if that, at the time. And so I was getting paid a little bit of money, to be in promotions. And then my man Ron White, salute to my guy Ron White, still my guy to this day. He was the music director at the time. And he was like, yo, he said, you ever thought about being on the radio? And I was like, nah. And he was
you said no?
Nah, because I hadn't. Okay. I'm shocked. I was just happy to be there. And like, every now and then I would jump on with Willie Will. Yeah. But I never thought to myself, I can get my own show or anything like that. And he was like, yo, you should be on air. Ron White said this. Okay. And so Ron White is the person that started, allowing me to voice track and put me on air, So that's why I got mad love for, Ron to this day. Like, certain people change the trajectory of your life, and, you should always honor those people, for even if you're not on the great terms with them, or even if you don't like the person no more, you should always honor them in your story. By telling them that, but telling that story about them, because you can't erase that. Right?
The only reason why I wanted to know how long is because we are definitely in the era, and you talk about it in the book, where everyone is, especially with the younger people, and I try to think back if I was like that, even though I catch myself still being like that, is like the overnight success. Like, how long did it take? That's why I wanted to stress, like 30 years in radio broadcasting. How long did it take of you struggling before you got your first big, like, I don't want to say the $6 check, but that, Oh,
I didn't get a huge check in radio till Breakfast Club.
Wow.
Because Breakfast Club was
that's like easily 10 years, right?
Longer. Because that was Breakfast Club was the 7th radio station I worked at. So I started in 1998, and then I got with Breakfast Club in 2010. Yeah. So what's that?
But you were working with the Wendy Williams show.
Yeah. So I worked at 4 radio stations in Charleston, and then I was with Wendy But I worked with Wendy for like a year and a half for free. And then when I got put on salary, I was making $70,000 a year. And then I got my own morning show in Philadelphia, and I still was making like $70,000 a year, $75,000 a year, something like that. And then I went back home. I had to go back home to South Carolina because I got fired 4 times.
Yeah, and that was my next one. Why were you getting fired so much?
That was just a game. Like, it wasn't even about anything that I was necessarily doing. It's just like, that's just the business of radio. Like, when I started at Z93 Jams, that's why I was an intern. That's when I was in promotions. That's when I worked in programming. I quit, there to go work at a station called Hot 98.9. My man George Cook, who is the operations manager at K104 in Dallas, he's the first person to give me a full-time job on radio. Still a great mentor of mine to this day. And even then, I was making $19,000 a year. And then I, went to Columbia after I got fired from Hot 99. They fired George. George is who hired me. They fired him, brought in a new guy, Corey Hill, who was the program director. And then Corey fired me because Corey wanted to bring in his own people. Of course. So that's just the way the game goes in radio.
Now, during this whole journey, what's your mental health looking like? Are you starting to second guess whether this is your journey? I really want to dig into that mental health state when you're going through that roller coaster wave, because you even ended up back at home with your parents at some point.
I did the first time I got fired from radio, which was Hot 98.9 in Charleston. I was a little fucked up mentally because I didn't know that I could go do radio other places. So in my mind,
you're like, that was my one shot.
Yeah, because I didn't think I'm from Moncks Corner, South Carolina. I know that area. I know I can have success in Charleston. I never even thought about doing radio other places. And it wasn't until I did this demo tape, but it was actually because I used to do my man Dr. Robert Evans and his son, my guy DJ Bless, loved them to death. They had a record label called Never So Deep, and so I was doing A&R for them. and they put out a compilation album, and it was like all of their artists, because they had a subsidiary deal with MCA back then. MCA was a big label back in the day, and so they had a compilation album, and I narrated the compilation album, but I put it together like a radio show.
Oh, okay.
And so we were just sending that out, around the country, and one of the program directors in South Carolina named Mike Love, he was like, yo, he sent me an email. He was like, yo, do you do radio for real? And I'm like, yeah. And he was like, man, come see me. And so I drove an hour and a half to Columbia, South Carolina from Moncks Corner, met my guy, Mike Love, salute to Mike Love. And Mike started putting me on in Columbia Thursday. I think I was on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in Columbia. Or maybe Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I don't remember.
And that was your second after getting fired from the first?
But that was the third station I worked at.
That was the third.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I loved working in Columbia because my wife was going to the University of South Carolina, so that's in Columbia.
Okay.
So now I had a reason to be up there every weekend. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So once again, that's God.
Yeah.
Like you cannot script that. Like that is all God. That's God putting all of those pieces together. Like I want y'all to be with each other. Yeah. Here, right? Yeah. Even if y'all go through ups and y'all go through downs, I still want y'all around each other, because we did break up for a year at one point during that time. We've been together 26 years. Mm-hmm. But long story short, I ended up in Columbia. That station, Big DM, flipped formats. Mm-hmm. So I ended up going to work for the station that they bought, which was Hot 103.9, which was the big hip hop station in that market. And from Hot 103.9, that's when Wendy Williams got syndicated on Hot 103.9. So when they would come to the market, her and her husband, I would just show them love. You know what I mean? Like make sure they was good with whatever they needed. Take them to the clubs, stuff like that. And that's how we forged a relationship. And it wasn't just. They forged a relationship with other people around the station at that time too. Like my homegirl Venom, she had a good relationship with them as well. So we all just had a relationship, and that's how all of those dots ended up connecting.
Okay, how was it working with Wendy Williams?
Best and worst time of my life. Best and worst time of my life, just because like Wendy comes from a different era. Like there's been time I remember sitting in the studio offering some input, and I shut the fuck up and do it my way or get the fuck out. You know what I mean? I don't want to hear shit from you, motherfucker. Like, so it was like
this was like before the nowadays HR. People would be terrified.
I think about that shit all the time. Like, was there HR departments back then? It couldn't have been. Not the shit we was doing.
I think also when you're young, I don't think anyone really knows how to use HR. I mean, I could be wrong with today's culture of cancel culture. Like people are like more. But I remember being like sexually harassed, like all types of things, because I did not know how HR worked. I just knew I needed my job. Yeah. And I wasn't willing to do anything to jeopardize it.
And that's, back then it was like, I had personal relationships with them and professional relationships with them. And you saw how everything turned out with, her and her husband. So it was like all of that was a very tumultuous, I don't know if I'm fucking saying the word right, tumultuous. A fucked up situation. It was all fucked. It was a very fucked up situation.
So her talking
to be
to you
in.
Like that too also is like because the lines were blurred, right? So that's why she was talking to you. So what was the highlight of it?
Just working with Wendy, working with one of the greatest media personalities of all time. Regardless of what her, personal shortcomings may have been, professionally, she's one of the fucking best to ever do it. From TV to radio. Like, I mean, the things that I used to watch her do as far as like, show prep. Like, Wendy was a person who really lived. She lived, the culture that she spoke about. She wasn't one of those people who got in front of the microphone and gossiped because, she was performing. That's really who she was. And so for me, it was just, that's not, I mean, I don't want to do the gossip thing, but it was just like, be authentic. Yeah. Be who you are. Like I would be with her all day and then come sit with her in that studio and do the show and watch her detail our day. You understand what I'm saying? So it's just like everything was content for her. I was in the store and this happened. We were driving and this, like it was all content. And so it's like for me, that's always been my approach, Like your life is your best content. That's why I'm able to write 3 books. Because I'm not performing. I'm literally just showcasing and sharing all of these different things that, I've experienced, all these different things that I've learned. And I'm not afraid to be transparent. Like, how could I be afraid to be transparent when I've heard Wendy Williams talk about being on crack, smoking, sniffing coke, cooking the coke, smoking the crack, throwing up on the radiator because she was so high, and then the fucking radiator cooking the throw up. Like, but that's real. It's an amazing story. So if I come from being next to that, why wouldn't I be just as authentic? Plus, we hip hop.
Yeah.
So think about all the stories we've heard the Jay-Z's tell and the Biggie's tell and the Scarfaces and the Killer Mike's, all of these people that we love. So it's just like, I want to be that same type of storyteller.
So was it in that moment that you realized that authenticity was the key to success in radio?
Oh yeah, I knew that, but I knew that before Wendy because I was already admiring people like Wendy. I was already admiring Petey Green. Petey Green, that's my all-time favorite radio personality. Like, so I already knew authenticity was what separated you, period. Like, it's ironic that the name of this book is called Get Honest or Die Lying, because that could have been the name of my first book. Because literally, my daddy used to always tell me, when you lying to people, or he used to say specifically him, you think you lying to me, but you only lying to yourself. And so I never ever wanted to be that person that is, lying to themselves, because what happens is you end up volunteering those lies to other people. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what's happening in this era that we're in now in social media. Like, just everybody feel like they got to perform. So who's really truly being themselves? Yeah. Everybody's showing up with a mask on.
Yeah. Social, but you know what? It's you mentioned La Russell, but I thought La Russell did a really good job at kind of putting and I talked to him about this. I'm like, yo, I can't be that transparent. He's like, you got to, I'm like, I don't know. He'd be showing like, okay, this was the sales, or this is me pressing up the shirt. He would show everything, just document everything. And I thought that was like a crazy amount of transparency. I was like, I could never, ever do that. I
love that dude, man. La Russell was introduced to me by my late great friend Hovain, and I never forget it because Hovain, he sent me a video of La Russell rapping, and La Russell, it was like the first one. It was the one that went crazy viral. He was rapping about so many things, the socially redeeming value. He was rapping about being a young brother trying to heal. Like, it was everything I was on. And so Hovain sent it to me, and I didn't get a chance to listen to it. And I remember a couple of days later, Hovain texted me like, there's no way you listen to that. Because he know me. He was like, there's no way you listen to that. And I was like, you know what? Let me listen to it. So when he texted me that, I listened, and I'm like, bruh.
Yeah.
Why are you just telling me about him? He's like, I sent you this 3 days ago. Crazy, right? And so it was like, immediately I had to repost it because I wanted the world to hear that. And then, when you meet La Russell, his energy is just everything, man. So he's just one of them young brothers. He always got my support just because he's a solid human being who I think is delivering a message, not just of independence when it comes to business, but a message of healing that I think a lot of brothers need to hear.
Yeah. Integrity is like definitely like a word I use a lot. And when I'm looking for entrepreneurs, celebrities, or influencers, I'm always looking for that level of integrity.
Absolutely.
And I remember just being like, okay, like definitely talented and all that. But I was like, I want to know, like, if we're a fly on your wall, like, what am I seeing for real? Like,
but that's what integrity is. And that's another part of the book, right? Get honest or die lying. That's why I said, like, we lie to ourselves, and then we volunteer these lies to other people. Integrity to me is doing what's right when nobody's around. Yeah. Who are you when the camera's not on? Who are you when the microphone isn't on? Like, because I really care more about God than anybody. Mm-hmm. That's why you don't care about perception. You should focus on your character, because perception is what everybody thinks about you, and that varies from person to person. Character is who you actually are. Yeah. So I care about my character. I don't care if the world has a perception of me, because they don't know me, and that's why people will say things like, what's the biggest misconception about you, Charlamagne? There is no misconception, because I don't know what version of me you saw. I've been doing this shit for 26 years. You know what I mean? I don't know what version of me you saw. So whatever version of me you saw, whatever perception you have of me based off what you saw, I can't trip off that,
No. Now, after the Wendy Williams, you leave Wendy Williams. How long was the gap between Wendy Williams and the Breakfast Club?
I left Wendy November 2nd, 2008.
I love how you remember this.
Well, I remember it for a particular reason. I remember it because President Barack Obama became president-elect on November 3rd, 2008. So You know, I'm good with time. I don't got to be out till like.
Oh, because he just gave me the.
Yeah, I know.
Did you see him do it?
I saw it. I know. They don't know. I'm as long as I'm out like 11:45, 11:50, I'll be fine. But yeah, President Barack Obama became president-elect on November 3rd, 2008. And I got fired November 2nd, 2008 from Wendy. But like 25 people got fired. Like it was a massive layoff. People forget how fucked up the economy was in 2008. So it wasn't just me that got fired. You had great legendary radio personalities like Bon Harper got fired and Champagne. Like these are legendary urban adult contemporary personalities.
At that time when you got fired, did you actually look at it as everyone's getting the rap? Because I know me, I'll be like, I know everyone's going through it, but what about me?
Well, you know, it was good for me because when I got fired, it was news. Like it was in like the New York Times and like I think it was Pix 11 or one of these local New York radio stations came to interview me and Wendy about my firing. And I remember them saying fan favorite. And I was like, oh shit, fan favorite. Because you got to think, when I first started with Wendy, they hated me. Like literally New York City did not fuck with me. Like they even put up a survey that said, should Charlamagne be sent back home? It was like 85% of people was like, send his ass back home.
How did that make you feel when you saw those surveys?
It didn't make me feel any way. Like I promise you, man, I've never been that kind of person. Like I understand things happen, and I have such a belief in myself, and I have such a belief in God, and I have such a belief in what God has me here to do that I just feel like all of that I knew even back then, even though it might have stung. I just knew it was part of the process. Like I knew I was not going to lose. I constantly hear Jay-Z voice in my head, I will not lose. You know, I knew that I was not going to lose. And so it's like, all right, I'll get y'all. You may not like me now, but I'll get y'all. And fast forward 2.5 years later, the news is reporting I'm a fan favorite. And guess what? Me working at Wendy, I did what I was supposed to do at Wendy so much that I ended up getting my own radio show in Philadelphia. And I loved it, right? Because I got fired November 2nd, 2008. My oldest daughter, who actually turned 16 today, or the day we're taping this, she had been born June of that year. So from November 2008 to like May of 2009, I was home every day with my daughter because my wife was the one going to work every day. My wife was keeping the lights on. I was too proud to go collect unemployment. I ain't had no money.
You didn't even collect unemployment?
I didn't collect unemployment until I got fired from Philadelphia for my fourth time.
I love that your wife and you definitely had that team environment. Like one's down, well, it's okay. We're gonna keep the ship running. Man,
she held it down. You know, I mean, we ultimately we were facing evictions and all type of stuff like that, but she held it down. And so it's like when I started off, I started doing radio in Philly. I got the morning radio show in Philly because of what I had done on Wendy's show. And then from morning radio in Philly, even though I was only there for 8-9 months and got fired, right? For the same reason, they brought in a new program director, guy named Boogie D, you know, who fired me from 100.3 The Beat in Philly. I love
how you're name dropping.
They need to be aware of their fuck ups. These people need to be aware of the mistakes they made in life. Ooh. So he fired me, and we went home for a year. Me, my wife, and my oldest daughter.
Okay, and y'all went home, all right.
We went home to South Carolina for a year. That's when I started collecting unemployment. I had never collected unemployment from any of those 4 radio stations I got fired. So I was getting like $1,100 a week for like 52 weeks, the whole year. And the last unemployment check I got was like November, like second week of November. And that was the same week I think I started Breakfast Club.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. And then you come to Breakfast Club, and it sounds like, and you could correct me, is this the highest salary of your career? Because now you're at what you said in your book it was 125.
125. That was the high, yeah.
And now look at you. I also, I had to like, just out of sheer curiosity, if you made 125K, then like, and then to see, I Googled, it's probably wrong, but I was like, okay, so then how much does he make
What'd they say?
Now from the Breakfast Club? I think it said like 3 million or something like that.
Wow.
There's a lie? Is the Google a lie?
I don't know. I won't confirm or deny. I have no idea. I'm not one of those guys. I don't know.
I don't know why I Googled it. I was just random. I get curious over the most random stuff. Okay, so you're at the Breakfast Club. Where does publishing take place? Like the book writing, where does that like happen? Because I know the first time I read Black Privilege had to been, was it 7 years? No.
Yeah, it came out. It came out.
Ago,
right? It came out 2016. No, it came out 2017.
Okay.
No, it came out 2017. It came out April of 2017.
I read that book. It's so funny. The only other books I've ever read by entertainers is mainly Jay-Z, Russell Simmons. And I read your book, and it inspired me to read, I think, Kevin Hart's book. And then I realized, no, not everyone's the same. I really like your writing.
Thank you.
I really like
it. But I mean, I actually write. You know, my guy, Chris Morrow, who I always give credit to because, you know, he told me 2 things that absolutely changed my life. He told me 12 years ago, you need to write a book and you need to start a podcast. And I always wanted to write a book because I'm a writer, right? I knew that was going to come, but I was like, a podcast? I was like, why would I start a podcast? Podcasts are for people who can't get on radio.
Oh.
I remember saying that 12 years ago. And he was like, nah, I'm telling you, man, it's going to be the next wave, yada, yada, yada. And I started listening to Combat Jack around that time. God bless the dead, Reggie O'Shea. And so I listened. I was like, you know what? Why not? Because in my mind, I'm like, I already been fired, 4 times from radio. And the thing that kept me afloat and in people's minds after I got fired from Philadelphia was I got to salute Angela Yee, going up to her satellite radio show, doing guest spots on there. And me and Lil Duval used to do a YouTube show called Hood State of the Union. Me and Lil Duval was doing YouTube shows back in 2008. Oh, wow. And it was.
Wasn't that when YouTube was like first brand new, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
And like people would watch them on YouTube, but then the blogs would pick them up, like World Star and everybody else. And so that's how I ended up even getting my first looks in TV, like my first real looks in TV, because Nick Cannon had a show called Hatin' that he was the executive producer on. And my girl, Tiffany Williams, she put me and Duval on that show. So I've always understood the power of the internet, right? And how to utilize the internet to build a national audience. So that's why I started the podcast, because I knew, all right, let's just say I do get fired from Breakfast Club. At least I'll have something else, going on. So me and my guy, Andrew Schultz, who now is the biggest comedian in the world,
I have no idea how impressed I am with his journey too.
You go back and listen to old Brilliant Idiots episodes. I used to say that. I'm like, yo, Andrew, because there was a comedian named Russell Peters, and he was like the biggest touring comedian in the world, but people didn't even really realize it. And I used to always say, Andrew, you gonna be that. You're gonna be the biggest touring comedian in the world, and that's what he's doing now. But back then, I just thought he was smart, funny, because we used to do Guy Code together, and we used to talk on the phone. And I remember one time we all ended up on a plane to L.A. for the MTV Awards or something like that. And we all rode in the car together, me, him, and Melanie Iglesias, and me and Andrew just been cool since then, fantastic person. And we've been doing Brilliant Idiots for 11 years now. So I'm glad I listened to my guy, Chris Morrow, because podcasting, book publishing.
But yeah, that's what I wanted to get into. So when did you actually say, okay, yes, I'm going to do book publishing? And then with that, you ended up doing your own, you published it yourself.
Well, no, I put out Black Privilege with Simon & Schuster. Black Privilege had tremendous success, instant bestseller, New York Times,
amazing book.
National bestseller. It was on New York Times bestseller list for like 20 plus weeks. And so they came to me and they wanted me to do another book immediately. I had started therapy in 2016. So, man, in the middle of 2017, late 2018, I was in a total different mind state because I was unlearning so many things that I had learned throughout my life. And I was dealing with a lot of the traumas that I had never, ever, dealt with before. So I was really in a confused state. And so when 2018 came around and they kept pressing me for this book, I was like, look, man, I've been going to therapy. I can share some of the journey of that. I can share some of the things that, I go there and talk about. And that's what I did. And then my book agent, Jan Miller, had the idea to add my man, Dr. Ish Major, who gave the clinical correlations to the things that I was saying. Like if you go back and you listen to Shook One or read Shook One, you'll hear how raw that was. You'll hear, the mind state that I was in, at that time. And then when it came time to do my third book, because, Shook One was a success as well, another bestseller, I was like, yo, I don't even want like a big advance. Like I'm not looking for like a huge amount of money. Because, every time you put out a book, you have success, the advances get bigger. I was like, yo, just give me what y'all gave me for the last one, but I really want to imprint. I really want to be able to publish other people's
okay.
stories.
Oh, and that's how the Black Privilege Publishing happened?
It literally was like that. Because, you know, for me, man, like I always say, if whatever you're building only benefits you, it's not big enough. So I was just like, yo, let me get an imprint. And by the way, all they can say is no, right? And they was like, hell yeah, let's do an imprint. Is that what you
did with the Black Effect podcast network?
Black
Did you do the same thing?
Yeah, Black Effect was essentially the same thing, because a little bit different, only because you know, with radio you have contracts, and so, you know, 5 years is like the max deal. And I had did a couple of 5-year deals already. Yeah, I did a couple of 5 years. So I was so when 2020 came, my 5 years was up. So, you know, we were in negotiations, and you know, the beauty, and I give a little jewel, because it'll never happen again, but I'll give a little jewel. I come from the era of radio where all of these new things that we were doing weren't in our contracts. Meaning, like, I had a radio contract. So the only, you know, entities I couldn't have conversations with is other radio stations. Yeah. But the world changed. So now we've been doing Brilliant Idiots podcast for 8-9 years at that time, right? And there's all of these different platforms, the Apples and the Spotifys, and all of these different people are looking for content. And it's like, oh, Charlamagne's contract is up, right? Are coming up. So, you know, you had different people, you know, reaching out to my agents, whoever else. And I always had this idea, because I was looking at just the landscape of podcasting, and I'm like, man, you know, you got Barstool over here, and you got Gimlet over here, and, you know, I was already a part owner of the loudspeaker network with my man Chris Moreau and Combat Jack, but I felt like there was no house for Black podcasts. Like, you had all of these Black podcasts that were scattered all over the place, and they had audiences, but they might not have been connecting that audience with the ad revenue dollars. I was just like, yo, let's I want to launch a podcast network. I want to start my own, you know, podcast network called The Black Effect. And it didn't make any sense, you know, to go anywhere else. You know, even though I had conversations, even though there was other conversations had, iHeart is the biggest audio publishing, you know, company in the world. So when I presented my vision to iHeart of what I wanted to do, they were all in. And so I'm a 51% majority owner of The Black Effect. This isn't a vanity label. This isn't some, you know, hey, let's just give him something and put his name on it. Which, by the way, and I want to say this, a lot of those other companies, that's what they were trying to do. Oh. So a lot of those other companies, I never told them like what I wanted to name it and stuff like that. I just, you know, my agents told them what the idea was. And a lot of those other companies wanted to do things like that, but they didn't want to give me no real ownership. They didn't want to give me no real equity. So I could have went other places and got like a big ass check and had a vanity podcast network, but I would have to run everything by them, and they would have to have first right of refusal on what I could bring in. Like, I couldn't be like, yo, let's bring in Eating While Broke. Yeah. They'd be like, well, who is...
By the way, shout out to you for that.
Yeah.
I want to say, touch on a couple things before we wrap.
Yeah, because I talk a lot. I'm sorry.
No, I'm secretly scared of the time, because your team is like assured me that I can't go over. One thing I wanted to shout outs to you is I previously did come from the Nick Cannon. I worked with Nick Cannon for like 10 plus years as a partner in another company. And one of the things that I'm not, hopefully we can scratch this, but one of the things I noticed with being in the industry is male dominated. One of the things I love about working with the Black Effect Network is that not only is it women of color that pretty much run it, I don't even know if there's men over there. There probably is, but
we got male producers like A King, my man Dwayne. No, you're
right. Yeah. My producer's a male, but I'm saying like the women are like really running it and holding it down, and it's like you could pick up the phone. I mean, if I say anything crazy, Dolly will call me in 3 seconds flat. I'm like, dang, I didn't even hit end, and I immediately know I'm in trouble. But I love how it is, but I also love, like, I always ask people like the transparency. So how is he really, you know? And you take good care of them, and you don't see that a lot in the industry. I've seen more the opposite, where the men get the checks and the women do the work, and then the women don't get paid, and then it's just like eventually they die off.
Man, the Black Effect is successful because of Dolly Bishop. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I knew that. It's like, man, God tells me things. It's like I always do, because Dolly's a family friend. Like, Dolly, that's my homie before it's anything else. And so I always do like Rock Nation is like a lot of my blueprint. And if you go to Rock Nation, it's the same thing. Like, Dez is in charge, right? Dez is the president, a woman. And there's a lot of other women in positions of power as well. And, I always thought that was so dope because, like, women get things done.
They really do.
That's just it. Especially black women, women of color, they get things done. And so it's like I always knew I'm going to start this entity and I want Dolly to run it. Like I always knew that.
Just a little side note. So Dolly, during the pandemic, I was doing a lot of crazy stuff because my company had shut down. And anyways, Dolly had called me and she said, "Hey, I'm thinking about taking this job or whatever. I'm not too sure." I didn't ask her what it was. I was like, "Yo, girl, if you don't have to punch a clock and you can get a check and they don't like watch you every day, what are we even discussing? Like we're in the middle of the end times. Like take a check, And I, for whatever reason, did not think to ask what the job was. Wilding out, Nick had pissed off the world with the Jew comments. And nobody knew what the heck was going on. I did not think to ask. So then I don't ask. I'm just like, take the job. Like, what are we discussing, Dolly? I've seen Dolly play every hat, and she's very skilled at. You don't have to worry about her integrity. She's gonna get the job done. Whatever. For whatever reason, she questioned it. So anyways, I'm trying to do Eating While Broke on the side. I like pitch my friends, like, all celebrity friends, like, yo, I need you to take one for the team. And on one of the texts I had said something about like Dolly. And then one of them was like, Dolly. And I guess in Variety, they had just announced that she was like the president of the Black.
Right, yep.
I had no idea, right? So I get the text and I'm like, yo, Dolly, I need to use her name more. And she's like, what are you talking about? I was like, yo, and I sent her like the Variety thing. Like, is this the job? And she was like, I was like, what? I was like, okay. And she was like, and don't use my name everywhere. And I was like, I'm definitely
hilarious
using your name everywhere. And then, true story, people always ask how I ended up on the Black Effect. I had been telling Dolly about Eating While Broke. So then I get a call one day. She's like, you're going to kill me. Why would I want to kill you? She's like, oh, you're going to be so mad at me. In my head, I'm like, no. And I had told her, like, when I do Eating While Broke, like, we got to put all our names in hat. Everyone's contacts have to come together, which, by the way, Dolly does not like to do. I didn't know that until now. But anyway, she calls me and she's like, so I was on the phone with iHeart, ICN, all you guys, and I pitched Eating While Broke. And I was like, okay, well, what's the bad thing? She was like, they loved it. And, like, Charlamagne wants the show.
I thought it was amazing. Excited.
And I was like, okay, what's the bad news? She's like, what's a podcast? I was like, I don't care. We need distribution, girl. Take it. Like, what do they need from me? And in my garage was like the Eating While Broke table. Like, I mean, my neighbors were driving past me like, what is this girl up to? And I always tell people like God like somehow aligned it because my plan for it was so like minute. And then, accidentally, by the sheer like accident, you guys end up in this call and everything happened, and I think it was beautiful. And every time I see you, I always try to make sure that I appreciate you took a chance on. And I remember Dolly coming out to LA like, we've never seen you in front of the camera, so we're gonna watch you do it. And then she saw me and she was like, this is you. This is for you.
I agree.
And I was like, what? But I hate talking about politics because I have my own insecurities. But recently in LA, I did interview a congressman. And I just kind of was like very transparent about how much I don't know about politics. It's not something I like to argue about because I don't know enough facts. I don't like to vote because I don't know enough facts. But one of the things that I learned in that interview is I was talking to my dad, and he had said something about like how he got all this money for like against like the jail system or whatever. And my dad had said something like, yeah, but how is he spending the money? And I just didn't think to ask that question. And I think, after that interview, after like getting that close and personal with a congressperson and seeing like who they are and how they got to where they're at, what I'm learning in politics is that government and politics, they're not necessarily together.
It depends. I mean, I think people forget that there's local politics and there's national politics. And I think most of the time what's happening, locally may not be happening nationally. There's a lot of things that I see happening, locally places that I wish were, happening nationally. Like, right now you look at Maryland and you look at, what Westmore just did, by pardoning, I think 175,000 people for misdemeanor marijuana convictions. Now, I think that's a great start. I think that, they could go further. I think that they should pardon, if you're in prison right now, in a state where marijuana is legal, and you're in there for a non-violent drug offense, I think you should be pardoned, and I think your record should be expunged. But I think what Wes is doing is a great start. But I wish that was the model for nationally, because President Biden could do that. And for a person like President Biden, who was hands-on with the 86 mandatory minimum sentencing, who was hands-on with the 88 crack laws, who was hands-on with the 94 crime bill, that would be a good way to atone, for some of that legislation that you created that put so many black and brown people away. You could, with a stroke of a pen, you don't need nobody else but you to say, if you're a non-violent drug offender in prison, you should be pardoned, and I think your record should be expunged, especially, marijuana.
Yeah, I agree. And then I remember when marijuana became illegal, it was like anyone that had that record couldn't even get into the weed business. My dad was like very upset. Like, could you imagine? Like, you perfected this career, you spent 10 years, and now you can't even get the license.
That's right. I got a license.
Do you?
Yeah, we got a dispensary opening in Newark, New Jersey called Hastoria. It'll be open this year. It's myself, Raekwon the chef, Bakari Sellers, and Jed and Josh are our two partners who run Hastoria. So we got a dispensary open in Newark. We got a dispensary and consumption lounge.
For people that, sorry to cut you off on that. For people that don't know that much about politics and are starting to think about voting, what are the questions that you feel they should be asking, like politicians, or looking for in politicians?
I tell everybody, vote their interest. Like, it's not hard what people are looking for. I don't care if you're black, I don't care if you're white, I don't care what your gender is, I don't care what your sexuality is. Everybody wants money and safety. Life is about, doing something that's going to put you in a financial position to create some upward mobility. And we just all want to feel safe. So I think that you should look, to the elected officials who are creating policies, who are creating legislation that's putting money in people's pocket and that's making people safe. Like, it's really not that hard. It's not that difficult. And when you find that person that is doing those things, vote for them.
Okay. Yeah, I think I like that advice, but I think in the past year, I don't trust as many people.
I don't blame you.
And I'm more like, even if I were to date now, I'm like, what's your resume looking like? Give me the X numbers. Like, I don't give a anymore. If you can't give me an X number and they say this is it, then I don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, you getting references?
And yeah, I haven't started dating again yet, but yeah, my husband got fired, or he's getting fired. Anyways, but yeah, I think like even with Kamala Harris, I heard like she was a district attorney that like put a lot of people away in her previous. Like, I'm looking at all references. Do you think that matters or no?
I mean, that one's interesting because she was a DA doing her job, and I mean that's what the laws were, at that time. I mean, I've definitely seen her pivot, on her stance in regards to marijuana, but that's why I think people like her, just like people like President Biden, should be advocating heavily, and not just advocating, they should be doing pardon everybody in America on a federal level who has a non-violent drug offense, especially for marijuana. They have the power to do that.
They have the power to do it.
Yes.
Why do you think they're not doing it then?
Nobody's pushing them politically, but that would be an amazing thing for both of them to do because both of them have those reputations. Both of them have, those type of records. So it's like, yo, do that.
Yeah.
Say that, hey, y'all, you're changing with the times. This legislation that y'all that was created hurt a lot of people back then. So it's just like that is the way you atone, for things like that. So I've been saying I think that would be one of the most fantastic political strategies that they could do right now. Like especially during an election year. Like all of this right now is dream selling season.
Yeah,
everybody's pandering. Everybody's saying, and that's what's so crazy, right? You're in the White House, so you have power that your opponent Donald Trump does not have. So you can actually do things. He can only talk about the things he wants to do. So yes, it is dream selling season. Yes, they are pandering to us for our vote. And I mean, those are the things that I think that we should push for them to do. Because I can you imagine that headline? Imagine you open up your phone and you looked on, Shade Room or whatever it is, and or just anything. And it said President Biden pardons all non-violent drug offenders effective immediately or whatever it is. Like, whoa.
Yeah. That would get even me to come out and vote. Okay.
It'd rile everybody up.
All right. Well, what more can you share with us in regards to Get Honest or Die Lying? That we haven't already covered.
It's just a book that I want everybody to read because I want to challenge everybody to be the most honest version of themselves possible. We have to stop lying to ourselves, and we have to stop volunteering those lies to other people. The subtitle is Why Small Talk Sucks, because I hate micro conversations. I think we got to, find a way to start having big conversations. I think that we have too much, unnecessary small talk. And I think that we put small talk and the big talk on the same scale. Mm-hmm. So it feels like everything weighs the same when they don't.
Yeah.
Right? They don't. And we don't know how to even have, big conversations. We genuinely we don't even know how to discuss big conversations. And that's why America can't ever truly solve no problems. You ask me why, President Biden doesn't, do the pardon the nonviolent drug offenders, because nobody's really having that conversation on a big level like they should. They rather talk about transgenders in sports. Like, that ain't affecting nobody's life. Like, God bless them, what I mean?
But it's definitely like that whole, it's a media. In your book, you even talked about like how they charade this Trump did it to distract the people. That's right. And so it's just like, people like we just don't know how to discuss what we should be talking about. We make minors majors. Now, random question: do you think that algorithms play a role in dumbing us down? 100%. That's why I hate algorithms. That's why you have to disconnect. Like I tell people all the time, don't be a surfer, be a wave. Because surfers have to ride waves. The algorithm, we all ride the wave of whatever algorithm is presented to us, instead of actually being our own waves and, figuring out, man, what is it I should actually be thinking about in regards to this situation? Or should I even be thinking about this situation at all? Think about things that come across your timeline every day that you wasn't even thinking about. But now you can't get it off your motherfucking mind just because it came across your timeline. And guess what? It really don't even matter. It's something so small and so trivial. But I saw it. I saw them. They were arguing a couple weeks ago about, are you safer around a man or a bear? And people having in-depth conversations about this shit on podcast. And I'm like, where the fuck did this even come from? Why is this a thing? It's terrible.
Are you safer around a man or a bear? How about we have conversations about how
these conversations blow up because everyone's so obsessed with viral moments and getting the hashtag to get these numbers up. It's become it's like a chicken and the egg situation.
Yeah, I don't. To be honest with you, I don't know what it is. I don't know what makes these things go viral. I just know that we have to. At the end of the chapter, every chapter, I say let's discuss because we got to start focusing on macros instead of micros. Like, why are we having conversations about women? Are you safer around a man or a bear? How about we just have conversations about how to make women safe, period? Yeah. What the fuck bears got to do with it? You know what I'm saying? No. It's just silly to me. So it's just like, I want to just get us focused on just having the macros.
Real discussions.
That's it.
Getting to the real facts and keeping it honest.
That's it. So please go get it. Get Honest or Die Lying, Why Small Talk Sucks, available everywhere.
And
you
then
buy
also
books now.
Check out some of your other books. If you really want an in-depth conversation on who Charlamagne is, this hour definitely isn't going to cut it the way I would like it. I love that. And one last thing, I was thinking about this, and I told Jordan back there I was thinking about doing this. I'm actually thinking about hugging a tree. I'm that desperate right now.
Read. I got a chapter in my book.
I read it. I already read it. And it was like, what, 5 or 6 minutes, hug a tree. He said the New York trees are different from the other trees. I'm still trying to find a tree. You know what I'm saying? The chapter is called Tree Hug the Block. Get connected with nature. Damn, we gonna have to do another show for you. It might have to be called like,
I don't want to call it dating while desperate because you're not desperate yet.
No, I'm not. You know what? For the first time.
Because you said you desperate. Just now you said you was desperate.
Desperate?
Yeah,
we're desperate for peace. Peace.
Oh,
no.
Damn, my fault.
Let me just be clear. I'm single because, I'm still married. And integrity-wise, this sounds really silly.
What about dating while married?
Integrity-wise, I should do that. Integrity-wise, I just can't do it while I'm legally, like in my head, I'm like married. And then even if you go on a date, it's like, yeah, I'm married, but I'm separated and I'm going to go.
No, a lot of people go through this. I just did Pastor Keon's conference last weekend. He has a conference called the Crowd Conference. And him and Shawnee were on stage having this conversation. He felt the same way. He felt the same exact way because he was separated, but, he knew perception-wise, dating somebody like Shawnee O'Neal, he didn't want people to look at her away and say, oh, she's dating this married man, but he was going through a separation. And so I don't, if I'm fucking this up, I'm sorry, Pastor Keon, but I thought I heard him say he couldn't live like that. He still had to just,
that's how
he had to go connect with Shawnee. You know what I mean?
Oh, wait. He couldn't live like what? He connected with her while he was still married?
No. I don't think they.
Oh, okay. Obviously they didn't.
Yeah, I just think that he didn't let the fact of everybody's perception.
It's not even about the perception.
Or maybe I'm getting that wrong.
No, it's not about the perception. I don't care because my husband fully admits he's a super whore. But it's not the perception. At this point, trust me, he's done enough to blow up any type of secrecy. But I'm saying that integrity wise, I know in my mind I made a commitment, right? So I'm like, yo, let me just.
But you're going through a separation. If I'm not mistaken, Pastor Keon said he wanted to wait because he didn't want people to think that he was that he was cheating on his wife and Shawnee was messing up a happy home. If I'm getting that wrong, I'm sorry, Pastor Keon, but it sounds very similar to me. So I think we should do dating while married with Coline and have her in here interviewing potential candidates.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, I would do reference checks. I'd be like, let's see.
Because you say you need, that's right.
To this person, they said
that's
X and Y.
Because there's no better reference check than putting somebody out there publicly. Because now they're like, oh no, I know him, Coline. I dated him. Now the people will be hitting you up. They can't hide.
Hilarious.
Dating while married. Dolly, let's do it.
No, let's not. But I will say the reason why I want to hug the tree and stuff is because I do feel, and I was telling Jordan this, the older I get, the more I am driven towards happiness peace over happiness.
That's right.
I could care less about a high when I know the low can come around the corner.
That's right.
Just give me a flat line. And I used to never be like that. So when I saw the tree hugging, Dolly made me do grounded because I ran away to her house at one point. I sure did. And she was like, take off your shoes, go in the yard and walk in the grass. And I was like, okay, Dolly. I did it. But I'm like, maybe we could try a tree hugging. I'm starting to get into like meditate. Well, I haven't started. I've been reading books about meditation. I'm that desperate to do those things, not date. I think I deserve a nice break of being single. But we can play the dating show if you want.
I like it.
You're hilarious. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
I begged, borrowed, stealed, harassed your entire team to the point that Dolly called me and said, if you want Char, just call me and ask me when you're ready. And I did, and she delivered, and I was literally like, oh, she did it.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for
I get to keep this apron?
You get to keep it.
Okay, boom.
All right. Peace out, guys.
Peace.